Welcome to another episode of the School Podcast. Today is a very special guest and something slightly different happening today on the podcast. But before we get into that, I have to thank our sponsors, Nisai Learning. Nisai are the #1 online schools in the UK and the world. They've been dominating the game for the last 30 years. Check them out, all the links in the description. With that said, Marvin, how are we, my friend?
How are you doing? You okay?
I am really good. I will just say how I feel about this, and then you can dive in and explain to everybody, the wider audience, about who you are. Even Dave, who sets all this up, he's got the 50 grand equipment. He said, I can't believe Marvin Rees is going to do this podcast.
Really? You said that?
We did. And I think your PA or somebody reached out to us beforehand. You confirmed it, then I think they sent another email. I was like, I bet he's cancelling. So thank you for being here.
Well, I thought I might have to cancel and I couldn't find it.
I know, yeah, punch you down the lane. But for people who don't know who you are, obviously in the Southwest, many people will, but our podcast goes all around the world. Who is Marvin Rees? You're on holiday with your family, and someone says, what do you do? How would you describe yourself and your role and maybe your life at the moment?
Well, if I'm just doing a quick snapshot of positions, I'll say primarily I'm in the House of Lords now. I've been in there since February last year, 25. Before that, I was Mayor of Bristol from 2016 to 2024, which is what I guess I would be popularly known for. But outside of that, I've done lots of different things. I've worked for Tier Fund Development Agency. I worked at the BBC. I worked in the National Health Service, in public health. So lots of different things. But the public-facing things is Mayor and then being in the House of Lords.
Are you from Bristol?
Yeah. I grew up in Easton.
Okay.
And then before that, a little bit in Lawrence Weston.
Okay.
Yeah, and I spent my life there until I went off to university, went off to the US for a little bit, and then came back and settled there with my wife and kids. Describe
what Easton was like growing up. Obviously, I'm aware of Easton, but describe what the environment was like. Describe your upbringing just a little bit, just for context.
Yeah, well, I have to describe the raw material that's me, right?
Yeah, of
because
course.
That creates my perception of the context. That gives me. So I'm a mixed race kid. White mum, unmarried, no money, had me in 1972, right? So this is, if you've seen the Ken Loach film, Kathy Come Home type era, that's the era, right?
Wow.
So what my mum had to deal with people looking down on her. And actually, I did a book a couple of years ago. I'm not totally happy with the book, but I did a book and it was in my reflections on the book that I realized that how much of my world outlook is informed by what my mum experienced, not just by what I experienced. So what she experienced as a working class or sub-working class, you might say, poor white woman with a brown baby, unmarried in the 1970s, all the stigma around that and people looking down on her. So that's the raw material, right? Me looking at this world that's fractured by race, stratified by class and snobbery and all the rest of it. And I'm growing up in the middle of all that. I think when I was first in the world, actually, before I was born, my mum was actually told to have me aborted, actually.
Wow.
And about, that's not even just about me, by the way. That's about who has the nerve to tell a woman, if you're a good woman, you'll give your baby up, right? That's a judgment on her and her character and gives her a framework for assessing herself in the future. When time was tough, did she say, well, I wasn't a good woman? And then when I was born, it was like, well, you should give your baby up, right? Now, interesting, I begun to not almost believe that. And then I was on my way to London a year or so ago, listening to an interview with a mixed race woman who's just a couple of years older than me, who'd been told that her mum didn't want her, and it was the same thing. They had convinced them to have her put in care, right? So that's the raw material. Now I grew up in Bristol. First, I think we moved to St. Paul's. It's the only place you could get to live. No blacks, no Irish, no dogs, and all that type of stuff. And then we went to live in a refuge down in Exmouth for a little bit. Then we came back, we lived in Lawrence Weston on the estate, Longcross Estate, and then we moved to Easton. So moving to Easton was like the promised land for me, right? It was a working class.
How old was you then?
I was 6 when we moved to Easton. I was 4 when we moved to Lawrence Weston. I was 3 when we were in the refuge. Although we don't like to call it a refuge, it was a place where people went and lived. It was actually quite nice when I was living there. And then Easton was like promised land because my nan lived there and my cousins were nearby. And so I moved to this place. It was racially mixed, you know what I mean? People were poor, but some people had more than others, but we were all the same. We used to play cricket and football on the grass outside. So it was a good place to live, but then it became tough as well, right? This is the 80s, right? The riots were in Bristol, the rebellions, depending on your perspective. You know, it could be tough too.
Quickly, what did you say? No blacks, no Irish, and no dogs?
Well, in the 60s, classically, right, when we had the Windrush era immigration, if people were going to rent a home, there would often be signs in the window that said no blacks, no Irish, no dogs.
Wow.
So if you were black or Irish, you couldn't rent. Which is an interesting parallel, right, on that people have often spoke about the parallel experiences of black people and Irish people. I'm not a big historian on that, so I'm not going to dive into it too much, but that was pretty a classic sign in the window of people. Right?
So then you, through all of that, and I think we're going to probably be dropping in and out of your childhood and your connection to Bristol as well, especially with some of the questions and things I want to talk about. But then you ended up going to university, went to uni. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was good. I mean,
what uni did you go to?
I went to Swansea.
Okay.
Probably the best university in the world, I understand.
Oh, how much are they paying you to say that?
It was good. We had a good rugby team, very good rugby team. In fact, when I arrived, the first 15 scrum half ended up the British Lions scrum half.
No way.
Yeah, Swansea's very good at rugby.
Wow.
I wasn't so much good, but I enjoyed it. I
don't know if it's true, but he said it is, and you may know him. Do you know a guy called Tristan Williams? So he was like the executive principal of Venturers Academy next to Merchants Academy.
Okay.
And he said he played rugby against you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when he was in uni, he played rugby against you, and then a couple of years on, it's probably a while ago, but you kind of didn't know each other, but you knew each other. You didn't know but you was like, did we play? Right. And yeah, he said you were terrible at rugby as well. That's
probably.
Tristan, I'm joking.
I was getting my cackles up there. Yeah. No, so I mean, going to university was, I never thought I could go to university. I remember coming home from school one day, and because I said to my English teacher, Mr. Davison, because I was in the top classes, but I was a bit naughty, but there was all sorts of things about me being insecure and all the rest of it, and fear of failure. But I was in class one day, probably in the fourth year, as it was then, year 10 as it is now, and Mr. Davison was talking to the students about going to university, and I said to him, do you think I'll go to university? I wouldn't have said it loud. I said it quietly off to the side. He said, yeah, you could go. And I went home and I said to my mum, Mr. Davison thinks I'll go to university. So it was a shock for me. And even
your English teacher?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even going into sixth form, when I got 5 C's at GCSE, didn't do well. I got into sixth form, and even in lower sixth, I wasn't going to go to university because I just didn't think it was something I could do. It was in upper sixth when the application started going in. I just put my name in and ended up going. But going was hugely significant because it was my physical escape from Bristol and Easton. I needed to physically get out of the place, and it was like I see it as a stepping through a doorway into a world of opportunities that I didn't think I had when I was a kid.
And why did you need that physical escape?
Because even though initially moving to Easton, I said because it was near to my nan, was like the promised land, it felt like quicksand. I didn't know where the hope was when I was growing up in the area. I couldn't see, I had no picture of where life was going to go. I felt demoralized quite a lot. I felt quite hopeless. And I spent a lot of time regretting what had gone on before, wishing my life was different. And I didn't know how to put life together in Bristol. And I needed to go and get into a vehicle, as it were, that would have a motor on it that would bring me through. And getting out of Bristol and getting to Swansea University and almost having a chance to restart life. It's not restart life, actually. It's an opportunity to open a new chapter. It's the same life.
Or maybe reset.
Reset could be it, but it's like I'm not trying to get rid of everything that went before. You know, those things that challenge us in our lives become our power later in life if we overcome them, right? But university was like, I clearly managed to turn the page. This is a new day. This is a new day. First day of the rest of my life. And it's moving, and I can see where it's going. But university had its ups and downs too. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but you just go there and you crack on.
Was uni what you expected it to be?
A little bit. I had no idea. Do you know what? Because I was so distant from it. I was the first, so many people of our era are now the first in their family to go to university, so I was. I didn't even attend an open day. So the first time I even went on the university campus, I mean, I'd walked through the Bristol University, but that's because it's not a campus. But I'd never been on a university. Oh, I tell a lie. I'd been to Reading on an open day.
Okay.
But this is the second time. It was the first time I'd ever been to Swansea, and the first time I went to Swansea University. I didn't even know about open days, and I didn't even know about my accommodation. So I turned up, and I thought I would have all my food. There was a canteen. I went into this accommodation, and there was a kitchen. I remember saying to my mum, "What's the kitchen doing here?" And it was self-catering. I didn't know that. I was so unprepared. I didn't know about Freshers' Fare. I didn't know about any of these things. But once you go into class, you just go to class and you start, you meet your friends, you join your club, and life takes on.
I feel like schools probably do a better job of pushing university. So even for me, I left school probably in 07, 08. I didn't even know what university was at that time. But it was because I was in the bottom set, so it was never a conversation. I genuinely could not tell you what a uni was. And obviously I ultimately ended up changing my life and went to uni, being the first in my family. But it was still a massive cultural shock. It was kind of how you described when you were growing up. Everyone has different races, whatever, but you're all on the same level. You all got similar challenges because it's just the area that you come from. And then you go to university and it's just like, wow, what is this?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a couple of things that really struck me at university, because now I'm meeting new kinds of people. I'm meeting kids who were in boarding school and private school, rich kids. And there's a couple of reflections. One is, I met, I think probably for the first time, people who overtly saw life as an opportunity, not a challenge. So growing up in my childhood, a lot of the conversation within my immediate family saw life through the lens of struggle, right, and coping. And then I had these people, they just seemed to be, hey, next day's a great day. Now, by the way, I don't judge anyone for that. That's an accurate reflection of the way life presented itself. Life was a challenge, is a challenge for some people. And other people, they got this fantastic golden conveyor belt that takes them from opportunity to opportunity to opportunity. Other of us don't get that, right? We go from struggle, there's a gleam of light, we go through it, there's a small door that can lead into a big room, we go through that small door, we squeeze our way through, and we grapple our way through. But that really struck me. The other thing that struck me that I only found the ability to put into words later in life was when I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said to him, I wish I knew now what I knew then. I wish I knew then what I know now about life. And he said, what's that? And I said, remember all those times that some of the posh kids, and I don't want to be disparaging about it, some of my best friends are posh kids, right? But there were kids, and they would make jokes like, were they racist jokes? They were racial jokes about theft and whether you're going to mug them or whether you're going to go and do a burglary, and classist jokes, right? So when we played rugby, one of the chants from the touchline was, your dad works for my dad, right? This is about class hierarchy. And I would have said, when anyone talked down to me, and I say this to kids now, when they're coming from backgrounds like mine, going to university, if you meet someone like that, say to them, so how much did your parents spend on your education? What, 400 grand? Right. And you're at the same university as me. Your parents must be gutted. Because I didn't drop a pound on and I went to this state school. And so what does that mean? It means that pound for pound, hour for hour, opportunity off opportunity, I'm better than you. Right? Because you've had all this laid out for you, and this is where you managed to get to. I've had to overcome this, and I'm the same place as you. Funny enough, I was talking to Alex Beresford, who does GMTV, and he said he met a guy, and the guy was acting away with him, and I think the guy had been to Eton. And so Alex said, you went to Eton, I got a better job than you. He's
a joke on.
You got to deliver that sometimes, Now, and I think that one of the things I made, the points I made, and I still think about this in the House of Lords now, by the way, where I still feel out of place quite often, is that should be a source of strength for you, right? Whenever someone in the club treats you like you shouldn't be at the club and you're in the club, say, listen, I've had to overcome so much to get here. That is evidence of my worthiness of being here. You have no evidence of your worthiness of being here because you've had a golden path to get here. You haven't had to prove yourself. So if it doesn't destroy you, all those challenges that you don't like facing today could become your power tomorrow, right?
NISI brings the classroom to you, delivering high-quality live education for learners who need a different approach, whether fully remote or through our hybrid zones within schools, providing accredited teacher-led sessions no matter where you are. As a DFE Section 41 approved provider, NISI is trusted by schools and local authorities to support learners nationwide. Visit nisi.com to learn more.
So is it safe to say actually having a bit of a chip on your shoulder is a good thing? It can be a driver. So for example, everything you just said then, I totally agree with. And I've used this example many times. The truth is, when I go into schools, and I go into schools, Switzerland, Austria, mainly all in the UK, it could be inner city, Manchester, Moss Side, it could be anywhere, right? It don't matter where I go. When you walk in, you sometimes feel like either it could be from the receptionist would judge you straight away, it could be a teacher, it could be anybody, thinking, who's this guy? Maybe wearing jogging bottoms or whatever. But the truth is, I'm charging a lot of money to be there. But then the CEO might come down, dap me up, give me a hug, and then everyone's like, then they change towards me. But I've already seen it. And it makes me feel a certain type of way. It does make me feel like, I guess, that boy again when growing up. But also at the same time, I could easily throw that out, and maybe it is useful sometimes. But I do have a chip on my shoulder sometimes, and is that a positive driving force?
I got no problem with chip on shoulder.
Yeah.
But again, I did Channel 4 News a little while ago, right? And so I'm going to use some descriptors here because they are descriptors, right? It was on climate, and I had quite a pleasant young white girl, nice background, like guessing, just talk about how angry she was about everything, right? I won't say his name because I like him as a reporter, but anyway, the Newsnight presenter turned to me and said, and I shared, and he said, "You don't seem very angry." Right now, I'm a 6 foot shaved head black guy from a working class background, used to box and play rugby. I don't have the luxury of displaying my anger. Right? With such freedom as some of those characters too, you know?
What does that mean?
What it means, we have to manage ourselves all the time, right? Because people get scared if you begin to display your anger. Even as mayor, if I displayed my full emotions all the time, well, you see the headline. If I dare indulge some of my emotions, then people thought, no, this isn't new. We all know this, right? So we manage ourselves. It's a privilege. It is a, dare I say, it's not just a right, it's a class, posh white privilege, I say, and that's important. I'm not saying it's a white privilege, it's a posh white privilege, right? To display anger, right? With such freedom. Because when other people do it,
what would happen
it's seen as a threat. It's seen as a threat, right? And I could be challenged on that. There's all sorts of layers you can pull back on that, but I think that's a general truth. But in terms of motivation, I think it's good to carry. I think it's good to carry. But
also that's you say you could argue and debate that, but that's also your experience where you currently are now with your life experience. Yes, growing up in Easton, everything you've described, going to university, being the mayor of Bristol, also then Harvard and Yale, was it? I think I've seen.
Yeah.
House of Lords, this is your experience now. And sometimes you don't need data or research to prove anything. Sometimes it's a feeling and you know it because you've experienced it every single day, which I think is fascinating. And I want to go then talk about your time as the Mayor of Bristol, which is obviously such a title. I don't really know what the job consists of, which hopefully you can express that a little bit. I just know when I was coming up on the ground working in some schools in Bristol, I knew that you was the guy, right? One thing that I'm fascinated by, and I went onto your Instagram, obviously you didn't follow me back, but you know, it is what it is.
I don't do it.
No, it is what it is, no, nothing personal, right? But some things, even on your Instagram, and when you obviously do a bit of research, that there's a divide. Some people absolutely love you, others think you're the excuse they're not where they are, or whatever it is, you ruin Bristol. However, from the way you describe Bristol, because I'm not originally from Bristol, the way you describe Bristol growing up, that there was no hope and you went to Swansea, that's not the Bristol that I know, even now. I could be in Middlesbrough and people are like, what's Bristol like? To me personally, it's the best city in the UK, right? Maybe Newcastle's quite good, whatever. I don't know what your responsibilities look like. So I guess if you can just dive into what your responsibilities were as a mayor, but as a personal, selfish question, how did you develop the resilience to do it for as long as you did, put up with the hate, the negativity? Of course there's positivity as well, but you're a target, right? And you're never going to make everyone happy. You just can't. So it's like a job you can't really win at. But why did you want to do it? What was that like? How did you build that resilience? And yeah, if you could just dive into that whole experience a little bit, that'd be wonderful.
So the job in terms of aims is the way I see it, right, is to make Bristol a city of hope. And that's a broad term, but hope is an incredibly important idea for me, right? Because I spent a lot of my childhood feeling pretty hopeless. And I think I saw hopelessness in some of my peer group and people that I saw that I felt connected to. Even if I didn't know them, I felt connected to them because I see they come from backgrounds like mine. And so hope has for me a number of elements to it. One is it means I want to be ambitious, right? I want to be ambitious for people. Someone once said to my chief of staff, who come from working class background himself, don't use the word ambition, it's such a Tory word. I was like, well, I've never let you near any of the young people I know because I'm ambitious. If you're born into poverty and you live there, I'm ambitious for you, right? I'm not letting you, and this is quite a well-to-do, you know, it's when people live a life of comfort and they start talking about no ambition, but you've got all your comforts already, do you know what I mean?
Easy.
So I'll tell you, I said to someone once, I'll tell you what, you want to stop the economy? Let my mum have your parents' pension pot, you have my house, I'll have your house, and then we'll stop everything, right? No, I want to stop everything with everything I own, my nice house in Bishopston and all the rest of it. So I think it's about bringing hope, but it's about bringing the right kind of hope. That means it's be ambitious, but it's the right kind of ambition. It's ambition that includes people, not ambition that races off over the hill and leaves everyone else behind. That's what we wanted to do. What does it look like functionally? That's why we tried to build affordable homes, try to tackle child poverty, make sure kids have work experience, support business to do well and thrive in the city. There's a whole range of fronts on which you push, right? And then day to day, there's the financial tightness of the local authority. You have to bring back a balanced budget. So I convened the leaders of all the big institutions in Bristol, across education, universities, business, unions, faith groups, voluntary sector, and we began to work collectively with something called the City Office. So that's the way that worked and I approached it. And yeah, my drive would be on racism, poverty, and ambition. I think just driving them forward. And I also think that the role is international. I got some criticism for this, but my life is not determined what happens on this little pot of geography. Most people's isn't, right? Lots of forces happen outside Bristol that shape Bristol life, right? The economy, migration, climate change. So we need to shape those forces before they hit us in Bristol. And there's lots of people in Bristol whose lives extend beyond the city boundaries and extend internationally. It's just been a hurricane in Jamaica. My dad's from Jamaica. My family's live in Jamaica. I'm interested in a hurricane, floods in Pakistan. So the well-being of people in Bristol was impacted by what happens globally, right? And even if you don't have family, you look around the world and you think, this isn't a good world right now, or this is a good world and it will impact on your well-being. So we're globally engaged. In terms of what it's like being in the middle of the hate, there's a number of things, right? One is whenever people say that, I ruin a city, I say, tell me what you mean. Define it. That's just a statement. What are you upset about? Right? Someone said to people would say, a lot of friends, people.
Well, most of the time they can never probably give anything.
Well, then we're talking about nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what? We built 14,000 homes when I was mayor. Does that destroy the city? No. What is it? So it's a difficult conversation to even get into because often it's a little statement. It's a Facebook statement or a Twitter statement. And one of the challenges is people aren't held accountable to explaining. One of the podcasters I really like and presenters is James O'Brien, right, on LBC. You say something, I'm going to ask you what it means. You don't like woke. What do you mean by woke? Exactly. People don't often know how to define it. So you're talking about nothing, you're just talking. And then we had data, right? I visited families who moved into homes that we built, right? low-income families, right? I met an older woman. We built homes in Lance Weston. There's an older woman. She said, and she moved into one of the homes that we built. She said, she had 2 bedrooms now. She said, I can have my grandchildren come and live with me. She was just buzzing. Right? Her life's got better, right? And her family's life got better. She could do childcare for her kids and so forth. So no, we spent plenty of time. You get off that social media world and go into the real world, be it kids I grew up with when I went, or if I go to a youth club or boxing club, or I have kids come and work experience with me and come in the chamber. I think we opened it up. So we had a hard date, and I was happy with that. And I think the third thing I'd say is, sometimes people would say, how do you cope with it? And again, I'm going to use some categorizations here, right? I mean, I grew up in Lance Weston and then Easton. I experienced some challenges, right? The challenges didn't crush me. I managed to come through them. Doesn't mean I'm a Superman, but I'm still standing. I go in the council chamber. I've got a room of kind of middle class, kind of white. A number of people you think I'm worried about that? You know, do you think, having gone on the journey I've been on, that being tested in the way I've been tested, that those views really...
But where does that come from though? Because it's like, you've set the way, you created a new path, you created the path in many ways. You didn't follow anyone, which means you're somewhat built different, right? Where, I mean, I've worked in secure units, and there's obviously a few we're probably both aware of. One actually quite local, and there was like 21 teenagers in there, and 18 out of 21 of them, parents or other family members close to them has been to prison, right? So it's like, I get what you're saying, and I love what you're saying. You're passionate, you're compassionate. I can just see why you're where you are, and I'm also fascinated to see where you're going to go. But is that just in you, or can you learn that?
So,
going off the mayor question, really.
No, it's all right. So I think there's a few things, and I'll be very open with you.
Can I just ask one more thing, sorry?
Yeah.
Did you have a relationship with your dad? Yeah. In the end, okay.
Yeah. My dad was around. I got a lot of brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. There were 8 of us that we knew of, right? There might have been more. So there'll be a number of points for coming at this, right? Life was tough, but I was blessed too, right? My family loved me, right? We had a stable home. This is why, again, one of the reasons housing was so important, right? Because we were in the council house and all that. That was no big deal. I had a door we could shut, and I was safe in that home, right? I was able to get outside the city boundaries. I got camping, so I knew the world was bigger than the one I was in.
So you expanded your mind.
I started sport, boxing. It was a massive intervention for me.
Who's your favourite boxer all time?
Yeah, all time. It's going to be Ali. I mean, but I love Sugar Ray Robinson.
Got you. Okay, sorry, Cal.
Yeah, that's all right. And I like Jack Dempsey.
Okay, cool.
But that gave me a lot of self-esteem. And that was a massive intervention, actually, because I felt I lost a kind of sense of, I still carry a vulnerability, but it helped overcome a sense of vulnerability and physical threat that I experienced on the streets of Bristol. Again, and the threat was there, right? Growing up, if you grew up like that, you'll know physical threat is real. It's a real consideration, right? And I so I had a faith as well. You know, I grew up in the church, and that was incredibly important. In fact, when I became mayor, some people attacked me on it. Oh, he's trying to introduce a theocracy. I said, listen, I'm not telling you to believe. But if I say that part of my journey was empowered by my sense that my life was significant, right? It's none of your business. I'm saying it mattered to me. I'm not telling you that it has to matter to you. But I had a sense, and I will tell you what, so I was telling someone quite a big moment the other day. So I'm illegitimate, right? By birth, by marriage type, right? I am mixed race. And I remember some black friend saying to me once on the way to school, so Marv, and this is in the 80s, right? I could be chased down the street by people calling me coon, wog, and telling me to go back to my own country, right? I'm walking to school one day, and I'm with my mixed group of friends, and one of the black kids said, so Marv, in a war between black and white, whose side are you going to be on? You know, teenagers, big moment. I'm 13. I want to fit, right? I'm not going to war with white people. My family's white. right? But I'm very aware that I'm being called coon and told back to go back to where I come from. And I'm being threatened physically because of the colour of my skin. 13-year-old, big moment, right? People would say to me, one kid say, oh Marv, you know, there's Jamaica over there, there's England over here, you're nowhere, you're in the sea, you're in the middle, you got nowhere. So everything's telling me, and I'm poor, right? So everything's telling me my life is insignificant, I don't matter. I was reading the Bible, the Gospel of John in chapter 1, and it says, when you're born of God, you're born not of a husband's will or human decision, you're born of God, right? Lots of things were going on, but I thought, in that, it was like that. I was like, my life is significant, irrespective of what people think of me. It was a massive moment, right? It'll be insignificant to other people, but for me it was profound. It may be fairy tales to other people, but to me it was a massive moment. And I describe it the way it moved into my head, that in a world that told me I was nothing, here's the pivot of the world, right? And I'm out here moving around being nothing. I went here. I became the pivot. And I said, if the world can't cope with who I am, it's the world that's a problem, not me. If it can't cope with my identity, being a mixed race, illegitimate, poor kid, the world has a problem. Because I'm a full, legitimate, worthy human being. Doesn't mean I became proud and I had a great sense of self. I still have my insecurities now. But I know that I'm here. I look you in the eye, you look me in the eye, we're both here, we're humans, right? The equal value of anyone out there. I don't care how much money you got, right? That was a massive moment that fed into a journey that I then went on, and it built on. I took another challenge, I overcome it, and those challenges, you suddenly turn around one day. Sorry, I'm going along, but when I became the mayor, I used the same image. When I became a mayor, it's like I put a suit jacket on, it was too big for me. And then one day, I was walking along and thought, oh, the jacket fits. I've grown into it. Wow. Right? Yeah. And I've done that through life. And then I've gone through life, and now it's the approach I've taken every challenge that comes.
How much power did you have as a mayor then? Was there many people you have to consult with before making a decision? Like, what did it look like? And did you have, or could you do as much as you wanted? So like one of my favorite rappers, for example, American artist called J. Cole, and sometimes he talks about when like Barack Obama became president, he said something like in his song, he said, I don't want a picture with the president, I just want to talk to the man. And then he wanted to basically ask, where was the change that you kind of promised, or like did you kind of get into the system and realize like listen, you can't bring any in the system? Was that similar to you? Did you become the mayor and your hands are tied? Did you have a lot of freedom? Like, what did that look like?
Well, power is a strange thing, right? Because it depends on where you are. So if you're, say you're playing football, right, and you're in the championship, and you're a powerful team in the championship, you get promoted. Are you a powerful team in the Premiership? Just moved into a new league. Welcome to the big leagues. It's like I'm listening to some interview. I like the basketball US, and they're chatting about Larry Bird. If you know him, he's a trash talker. Yeah. And often he'd say, "Welcome to big leagues, rookie," before he dominates someone who was dominating college ball, right? And that's what it's like. You've moved into the Premier League, right? I mean, there are others as well, but you bump into things. So there's power in it because you become a gravitational force, right? There's the mayor, and you can influence things. So I would say, but power doesn't exist in abstract. So you need people around you. You can't just, and I'm not claiming kingship, but if I was to use this image, you can't just be a king. You have to have king makers, right? You have to have people that endorse and say, yeah, this is the person. There's a very powerful reflection on that, actually, that I used a lot. That there's a story that Harvard use, right, when they're doing their leadership program, and it's a true story. It's Bolivian miners who got caught down in a mine collapse. They got trapped underground. And anyway, they go through the dynamics of what happened when they were underground. But what happened when they were underground was one person stood up and said, I'm going to be in charge, right? And he took charge. But it only lasted a few days because no one, while he imposed himself, no one said yeah. And then after a few days, one of the guys said, got them all together and said, like this. I'm butchering the story a little bit, but he said, this ain't working. This is the person that should be in charge, right? And they all say, yeah, let's make that person in charge. So who has the power in that moment? Is it the person that's in charge? Or is it the person that says, this is the person to be in charge, right? He wouldn't have been in charge if the person hadn't appointed him. So you've got to have people around you that hold you up, and endorse you. Institutionally, you have an amount of power over the organisation, but it's not exactly command and control power, because you've got all managers making decisions, and you can't be there every day.
Yeah, you can't.
And city leadership, which a lot of people don't understand. I always lamented at the quality of journalism in Bristol, which will fire them off anyway, is I run the council. If you have a pie chart of power and spend in Bristol, Bristol City Council is a slither of that pie. You've got the universities, right? I don't run the universities, but they have a massive impact on Bristol. Huge employers, huge student numbers, 60,000 students. You have the health service, massive employer, huge estate manager, providing health services, determining people's lives. I don't manage the health service. You have the police and criminal justice system, right? I don't control the police, right? You have the business community. I don't run the aerospace industry. I don't run the media sector. Massive presence in Bristol. You have the voluntary community sector. Now we fund them, but they run themselves. You have faith organisations. They run themselves. So when you look at what shapes life in Bristol, it's not just the council. That's a small slither. How do you convene all of them? And that comes down to the difference between hard power and soft power. So it was Andy Marsh, who was our chief constable, who said, world-class public sector leadership is not about what you control. It's about what you can influence. And I positioned myself in a position, I talked about the one city approach, where I pulled all these leaders together and I said, what can we all point at? What do we want Bristol to be like in 2050? Not hard power, it's convening power that I ended up exercising.
Bristol hit the news pretty big at one point, right? With the statue. You was in charge then, yeah?
Yeah, I was the mayor, yeah.
Firstly, can you talk about Bristol's connection quickly, just go over it, to, well, I believe it has, maybe I'm wrong, to the slave trade. That tower, the statue, sorry, when the statue got dragged down, the media, the pressure, your role, your day-to-day, your personal opinion, where did you stand? How was that for you, being a mixed-race lad from Easton in Bristol? Tell me a bit about that time.
Yeah. Well, my approach, I heard someone describe something last night, right? Use a phrase, and I quite like it. You can be idealistic, right, in terms of your aims, but operationally you need to be pragmatic, right?
What does that mean?
Well, it means you've got the perfect goal you aim for, but if you just say, hey, it's 100% or nothing, my way or the highway, you rarely get anything done.
I didn't see anything of yours. Like, as I said, I kind of just focus on what we can control.
Yeah.
But obviously it was massive. I guess also what I'm trying to work out as well, and maybe I need to do more research. I do it because I like you, and I think you're ambitious, and I've just heard amazing things. And I did want, you on the podcast for this reason. The compassion you share, the passion that you have, how you are now, did you have that as a mayor as well? Or when you said you put on a jacket and it didn't quite fit, did you not have that same emphasis that you have now?
Being the mayor was a outworking of what I've always been. It was just another manifestation of who I am. There's another avenue to do it. So when I worked at a university, I worked for Tier Fund, a development agency, right? International development, working on UK poverty and poverty around the world. That's what I wanted to do. Met street kids, met an organisation working with women caught up in brothels in Quayston City. That's what I want to do. When I came back to the UK, I worked for BBC. What did I want to do? Find the voices of people who were rarely heard, right? Bring them, give them a platform. When I worked in public health, I worked on mental health inequalities, right? And you talk about intergenerational prison, that's one of the things we worked on. Being mayor is just another outworking. It was just a chapter in my life, right? A very significant one. But the statue is interesting, period of time. But I'm going to point something at you, by the way. It's just, people say that people got excited about the statue, right? You know about the Colston Hall?
Ish.
This is the point. A lot of people say that people were talking about the statue for a long time. People are actually talking about the Colston Hall, right?
No, yeah, trying to change the name, right?
Yeah. And I said to a journalist, why haven't you produced any articles on the name changing? It's now called Bristol Beacon. Why is that not getting as much attention?
Did that happen before or after?
It happened at the same time.
Okay.
It was going to happen before, but anyway, there was a bit of an issue. But we went through a process, a consultation, engagement, and they had the name Bristol Beacon to change it to. But the focus is on the statue, which suggests to me the story isn't necessarily the statue. The story is the noise around the statue. The protest, the ropes, the dramatic.
What triggered that? Was it the George Floyd thing? What triggered that at the time?
Yeah, well, it was yeah. I mean, people have been looking at the Colston and Bristol's legacy for a long time, but yeah, I guess the public sense of catalyst would have been
the tipping
George
point
Floyd.
Was
George. But no, I mean, and Bristol's history. Yeah, Bristol was very involved in slavery as a city. It's not that the bodies of enslaved people came through the city en masse, but it was a critical city in the triangular movement, which was manufactured goods being taken to the west coast of Africa, people being taken over to the Caribbean and the Americas, and then cotton and tobacco and sugar being brought back. And it made because the ships were always full, it made tons of money, and it became an injection for the shipping industry, for insurance, for banking, for all those industries that grow up around trade. So it made a number of people in the city a lot of money. Not my family, not the poor whites, in Bristol, who lived in the slums down in the centre. So again, class becomes an issue in this as well. So that's Bristol's history. My own position was, and actually it comes out in the pragmatism of it, I did Channel 4 News the day it was pulled down. And Krishnan Guru-Murthy, who I like as a journalist, really like him, but he said something to the effect of asking me, did I support the persecution of the Colston 4? I always get this wrong. Or did I not support it, right? As in, do I want law and order or do I want the statue pulled down? My point to him is, look, you're offering me a binary option in a non-binary world. The truth is, I'm descended from enslaved Africans. Do I want the statue of a slave up in the middle of the city? No. Right? He may well have owned one of my ancestors, right? Jamaicans. He may well have owned one. I don't want a statue of a slave up in the middle of the city, but I'm also the Mayor of Bristol. I can't stand here and condone people running out with ropes and pulling statues down and throwing them in the river. I can't condone that. I'm the mayor. Now, those two things are difficult for you to hold together, but they're both true at the same time, right? And I'm not going to allow you just to say to me you're one or the other. No, I'm holding a difficult line here. I'm a mayor. I must have law and order in a city, but this statue, I don't like it, right? And then they said, and then I got all this. Well, why didn't you take it down? And this is David Garmston on BBC was all this. Why didn't you take it down? That question irritates the life out of me as well. Now, I say that, you get a sense of the chip on my shoulder and the anger, right? But I had to be very careful in the way I communicated that. So I had to, oh yes, good question type thing. Although I did express some frustration. So I'm the first person of black African heritage to be elected mayor of any European city, right? Damn. So I come into Bristol.
Say it again.
Yeah. So I'm the first, right? And bearing in mind, when this is true of black people, you don't just deal with your own story. What you do has consequences for other black people.
With over 3 decades of experience, we specialise in supporting young people with special educational needs, attendance issues, and students at risk of exclusion, as well as elite athletes, performers, and families who travel and need continuity in their learning. We combine in-person mentoring and virtual learning with small class sizes, subject specialist teachers, strong pastoral care, and rigorous safeguarding to ensure NISI students feel safe, supported, and ready to learn. Visit nisi.com to learn more.
It comes down to people as well. I share this story a lot. There's a great line in this series called The West Wing, which I always recommend people watch. When I first became a candidate, people say you should watch it. It's about the White House. It's a bit idealistic. It's 20 odd years old. And there's a moment where a president is advising a young representative, right? A young member of Congress. And he says to him, do you have a best friend? He says, yeah. He says, is he smarter than you? He said, yeah. He said, do you trust him with your life? He said, yeah. He said, that's your chief of staff, right? And I had with me a guy called Kevin Slocum, who's a local guy. Lockleys, dad works at the fruit market. He's my chief of staff. And with Kevin, one is, we can chat about stuff, right? He's a white working class guy. So we knew that the Colston statute was pivoting on race and class issues, right? The two things cannot be separated. I don't think race and class can be separated, but they're not the same. You can't just, some people say, let's not talk about race anymore, let's just talk about class. Well, that's not good enough, because racism is real. At the same time, racism has been used to allocate lower class status to people of colour. So we have the same story, as poor white people, right? So to me, there's a massive overlap. So we would talk a lot about these things. And that's it. You say, right, what's going on? What's the thinking? And I think what I did with the Channel 4 interview, after talking with Kevin, you take a breath, you think, all right, this is the noise. This is all the noise, right? All these angles going on. I'm not trying to work out what people want me to say. I'm trying to work out what we think. That comes back to that point I shared with you about name my company. You build character. Even if you don't agree with me, I've thought about it, and I'm saying what I really, really believe. Hence, I said to Christian Guru-Murphy, I was coming home to the interview, and I was thinking, how am I going to explain? Because I know they're going to ask me about the chaos, and if I argue against the chaos, it sounds like I'm advocating for the statue still being there. And I was thinking, how am I going to navigate that without them clipping it and making me look like I'm a sold out member of the establishment, suppressing or that I'm a man of chaos? I thought, no, they're both true. I'm just going to say that. And do you know what? I'm going to try and navigate a world in which sometimes you have to have two things in your hands at the same time, and they're very difficult to hold together. And do you know what? That's the adult world. Parents deal with that. Family members deal with that. Friends deal with that world all the time. And that's the world I'm in. If you don't live in that world, good for you. But I live in that world, right? And I took the same when dealing with the statue. So we treated the statue with respect. Do I respect Colston as a human being? No. But do I respect the Bristol people that grew up thinking that Colston was a great man and a great father of the city? Yes. Right? Not because of what they think about Colston, but I respect them as human beings. So I'm going to run the city, and I'm going to approach Colston in a way that shows I respect you. And so we didn't just lambast on race. I treated the statue with respect, and we ran a process about what to do with the statue. And again, I just told people what I thought overtly. I'm going to run a process, right? And we're going to do something with the statue. When we get to the end of that process, right, you may get what you wanted. Some people wanted us just to chuck the statue and leave it in the bottom of the harbour. We weren't going to do that. So you may get what you wanted. You may not get what you wanted. In fact, you may get what you didn't want. But whatever happens, this is a process that has shown you respect. And you know what? Often we can be on the end of processes that we didn't get what we want, but we know we've been respected, and we can live with that. And that's what we tried to do through that whole process.
But it's a part of history. It's done. It was 300-400 years ago. Bristol was built on it. What's the big deal? It's just a part of how it was back then.
Well, because it's history. I mean, again, I was talking to
when
someone.
People said that, and Bristol's, old Bristolians would say stuff like that, and it's a part of who we are. Yeah.
So what's the problem? My point was, again, a couple of things on that. One is, David Olasuga is brilliant on this. If you know the TV presenter, and actually he's a historian, does TV. This is just good history. I'm not telling you to feel bad about your history, right? I'm not telling you to feel good about your history, but we've got data that tells us what history is. Now, if you're saying I want to feel good, so I don't want you to tell me all of my history, that's your right, but that's not good history, right? We know lots about people like Colston, how he made his money. We're just telling the story. How you then emotionally feel about that, that's down to you, right? And listen, I'm a hypocrite, right? I am a fallen human being, and if you knew everything about me, you'd be like, oh, geez. If I knew everything about you, I'd be like, so if we as individuals are like that, if you give millions of people centuries of history together, you don't think you're going to find hypocrisy? So why people get sensitive about history that tells us that there are some things about us? I don't know why.
But
It's what it means to be human.
But there's also like just when people judge, and so many people have an opinion on everything. And I've learned over the last couple of years in particular, what you've just said actually is now it's, you know, that old saying, what is it? Don't throw stones if you live in glass houses. And the truth is, we all live in glass houses.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
Can I be an absolute asshole sometimes? 100%. But can I be a really nice person sometimes? Of course. And it's about balance. But I love that you,
And we do that individually and we do it collectively. The other little thing I'll mention to you, by the way, on that point is, so I was out in Lawrence Weston one day. It's lovely actually, and this older white woman came up, and you'll notice I do use I'm mixed race, I talk white black because I need to describe the world. And she was lovely, but she came up to me, she said, I don't agree with people taking our history away from us.
Okay, so what the point, Yeah.
And I said to her, can you name the vicar, the Bristol vicar, who organised dockers in Bristol in the 1700s, 1800s to strike for their working rights? She said, no. I said, you've already had your history taken away from you. Right? Because the history we get is often the history of rich people, right? How many working class, and this is actually one of the things that we said around Colston, right? He was a rich man. They weren't telling us stories of the poor. How many poor people get named?
And you said that actually. You also said through that time period, that wasn't helping your family members who were struggling, say, in the slums at that time, whatever that looked like, it only benefited the rich people.
Yeah. It's class stratified society. I mean, it plays forward today. I think one of the obvious questions at the moment in the world is that you have a bunch of billionaires who are making out like bandits, right? I'm not saying they're doing anything illegal. I'm just saying we have a more unequal world than we've ever had in world history. And somehow they're telling us through their media outlets that they own that immigrants are our problems, right? So you're telling me that some of the most powerless and vulnerable people on the planet are the people that are shaping my life chances and the life chances of my children? I mean, even if you don't like black and brown people, come on, engage your brain, right? Powerful people are telling you that non-powerful people are the reason you're poor and the reason you don't have any life chances. Come on.
That's crazy, actually,
right?
The way you put that.
It's very obvious, right? When I look for causality, I look for power, right?
Say that again.
If I look for causality...
No, before that, the powerful people are telling us about
other powerless people, poor people are the reason our lives are the way they are. Come on, you should sniff, I know you use bad language on your podcast.
No, that's fine.
You should sniff the
I've said asshole already, we're out of here, mate.
if rich and powerful people are telling me that poor people like me are the reason I'm poor, I should sniff bullshit. It does. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Even if you don't like those people that they're pointing at, you must be able to work that one out, right? And that's what we're getting in industrial levels at the moment, right? As a mixed race person, as a working class background, from poor background, I feel emotionally and heart drawn to people who are from my background, right? And you want to talk about anger, I feel both heartbroken and angry that I'm being robbed of the opportunity to connect with people who are like me, but maybe have a different colour skin, because a few posh kids with their billionaire mates are splitting us apart. And when we split apart, we become less powerful in the face of those people who are exploiting us. But again, fundamentally, I've realised, I've been reflecting, not as I just realised, but I've been reflecting over recent months just how emotionally painful I find that. And that makes me more angry at those that are robbing us of the opportunity to have those relationships.
You are technically Lord Marvin Rees, right?
Yeah, Lord or Baron, whichever you prefer.
Okay, so when at the beginning, before the cameras came on, maybe this is my education. I had no idea what that even means. In short, what does that mean?
Whether it's...
I just thought like a lord was the same as you just given a title because you've done some great stuff maybe and that's it.
No.
But it's not.
Yeah, you get the SIRs and the OBEs, the CBEs and the MBEs on that basis. the honours where you get a title. No, a lord actually goes into the House of Lords. So you've got the House of Commons, all the members of Parliament, and the other end of the building is the House of Lords.
Okay.
Right? It can originate in either sense, but say usually a piece of legislation, a bill, will arise in the House of Commons. It gets debated. If it passes the House of Commons, it gets sent into the House of Lords for them to debate it, revise it, suggest amendments to it, changes. If they then pass it, it goes on and it goes to royal assent and it becomes law.
Yeah.
If they vote against it, it gets sent back to the House of Commons for them to consider it again.
Oh wow, okay.
And then the House of Commons have to go through that's called ping pong. Then the bill can go back and forward as long as they reject it and accept it. But ultimately, the House of Commons needs to have its way because it's elected. The House of Lords is not elected; it's appointed. So Lords are appointed. There were some hereditaries. We still have some that got it from their parents, but that is literally we've just come into the end of that now.
Amazing. So, what would be your goal now moving forward?
No. I'm in a friend of mine who's a psychologist said you go through life and you get these periods where you know everything about, and then you get these plateau periods, these periods of wilderness reflection. I don't know.
I just think, I don't know, as I said, we all live in glass houses, but I think your element to just be honest and say things with your chest and you know who you are, I think that's so needed. I just think that level of honesty is just key. Moving on and past all of that at the moment, I've got a couple questions which following up some of the things that you said, but just quick kind of questions. And I think a lot of the young people that I work with, 100,000 of them every single year across the UK, also the teachers, CEOs in education. Just a couple of things I like that you said. Mr. Davidson, your English teacher, the belief in you to say you could go to uni. How important is that today? And what message would you give, say, teachers to understand the impact that they actually have? Or they don't have, maybe, I don't know, whatever your beliefs are.
Yeah, massive. So I got a specific teacher story that I've shared with teachers. So I was, when I was 14, 15, I'm a mixed race kid. I'm in top class, but I feel very conscious of, I didn't pay for my school dinners. I'm in the top class and most of the kids in that class paid for their school dinners. So it was race and class again in my top class. I was very self-conscious and I started misbehaving because I was afraid of failing. Because my teachers would say, oh, you're smart, Marvin, but you don't do any work. And I thought, oh, what if I work and they find out I'm not smart? So let me not work. And they keep thinking I'm smart. And anyway, I overcome. So I go into school one day, I get my school report, and it's another teacher, Mr. Jennings, who I still know, right? He wrote in my school report, Marvin, the war could be your oyster, but the way you're behaving, you're not going to go anywhere, right? And I took that report home and I read it, I don't know, like over and over again, because I knew it was true. And I just decided, right, I'm going to go in school, fail or not, I'm going to try, right? I had a lot of other things, the boxing, my parents, but that was a real catalyst moment, right? So when I ran for mayor first time in 12, I lost this election. People didn't know, who's this guy running, right? So I did it at my old school, the school assembly, and I invited Mr. Jennings. And I told him the story of the school report, and I said how important it was. And the fact that he was there says how important it was. I said, do you remember writing that? He said, no. And I said to a teacher, you never know. It may be that in 25 years, someone comes back to you and says, you know what? You said this 2 sentences, 1 sentence, and it click me over. They may come back to you in 25 years. They may never come back to you. You may never hear this, right? But never doubt that your interventions are changing life trajectories, nudging them 1 degree. And the 1 degree nudge feels insignificant at the time, but you know it is, right? 10 miles down the road, you're in a totally different place than the one you would otherwise have been. Sometimes people want revolutionary change, but that's not always what it is. It's a nudge. It's a subtle change in mindset, right? So that's what I encourage the teachers.
Amazing. Next one, you said going to uni was a physical escape. How do we push some of the students we work with out of their comfort zones a little bit, or just out of their area? As we know, you got some people even in the south of Bristol who don't even go into the city centre, right? And I'm a big believer, once you expand your mind, it would never go back to its original dimension, right? Schools do a good job of this, trying to close the attainment gap, but is there anything what comes to mind we can start to get these students, pupil premium, the ones who,
Well, for me, it was climbing mountains, right? I love to get kids outside of city boundaries because I was going to the Brecon Beacons, like with church, just camping, just climbing the hills, and I just knew there was a bigger world out there. I'm actually president of something called the British Exploring Society now.
Wow.
So when I was 18, I went to the Arctic. We take kids every year to the Arctic, over to Kyrgyzstan, and they go on the Amazon rainforest, and they go on real expeditions.
Wow.
Now, when I was there, I was, as Michelle Obama put it, a poppy seed in a bowl of rice, right? There weren't many poor kids, and there certainly weren't any black kids, right? I was the only one. But now the BES has done a real big job of making sure that if you get on an expedition, you go. There's financial support for you. That's the big end, right? But just, I'd love schools to work together, and we tried to do it a bit in Bristol, and we were really hit by COVID, unfortunately, but to give them a chance to get outside the city boundary. In fact, my old teacher, Mr. Jennings, he raised money within Bristol, and every year sends 100 kids on Outward Bound up to North Wales. He called it Marvin's 100 the first year it happened. He blessed me by calling it, but it shouldn't be called Marvin's 100 anymore. It should be called Bob's 100. And I went to see the coaches off. One coach from South Bristol outside Merchants Academy, and the other coach from Speedwell School. I forget what Bristol's. It's called Speedwell. I forget, they changed the name now.
Bristol Met?
No, it's not Bristol Met. It's the one at the top. It's in Speedwell.
Oh.
Bristol Met's in Fishponds.
Okay, yeah. I don't
yeah.
know.
So yeah, 2 coaches, 40 odd kids on each coach.
Bristol Brunel. Yeah.
Going off to, build rafts, do salt courses, do abseiling, go out in the rain. Fantastic.
Do things they would never normally do.
I love that.
You said about some of the posh, rich or boarding families or kids you work with and see, and you said they see life as an opportunity instead of challenge. I want to just quickly say, I got offered to talk in Switzerland, a part of this camp. It's expensive, this camp, right? So all these kids who come to this camp come from all around the world.
Yeah.
Harvard professor dad or mum or like under the president in Lebanon. Well, it could be a mixture of things, right?
Yeah.
Some of them went to a school with Ronaldo's son in Dubai or Saudi, and all of this stuff, right? So when I first got that call, I think, wow, what am I going to be able to teach these people? They're going to look at me as maybe the class I come from, the way I communicate, whatever it might be, right? They're going to smell it on me. And I delivered a session, and I've been doing, worked a lot with teenagers, and I was shocked how they engaged, and I was shocked that there was a queue of them just waiting to talk to me, ask questions about mindset, psychology, strategy, systems, habits, everything they can do to get better. And I thought, like, in my head, I'm thinking, I mean, your dad is high up in the UAE, you probably don't even have to work. Where does that hunger come from? But then you go to say I wouldn't actually say, you go to a particular school in the UK and it is low income, poverty, struggling. Some places say Northeast, like Middlesbrough or something, and there's no drive there, but it is generations on generations of benefits and no jobs, etc. So I guess, what am I trying to get to? Is it environment is key? Is it role models? Is it just, why did I go there thinking that they're probably just going to be lazy, rude and not care when I went to Switzerland, but it's the opposite? Where does...
Yeah, I don't want to disparage. I mean, like I said, there's a funny Chris Rock joke, I think where he makes a joke about rich kids, and he says, my kids are rich kids, you know what I mean? So you try and create a new environment. So I'm not disparaging them at all. It did happen like that. Do you know what I mean? And there was a whole different tone that I noticed. I guess what the kids are drawn to? They're drawn to authenticity, right? And recognizing there are. I mean, if you read, I say this to kids as well when I've talked to them, right? If you read a great novel, if it just says he or she was born, and then they had a great 5 years, and they had another great 15 years, and then they had a great 40 years. The end. It's not interesting. Oh, you had to overcome something. Yeah. Oh, you failed. Oh, you failed a few times. How did you do that? No, that's also interesting. And so when someone comes in who has some interest, then it's probably pretty magnetic to them. And that's where you learn. There's a proverb I use a lot. I used it when I was Mayor of Bristol a lot. Right? It's a biblical proverb, but I didn't tell people it at the time, but that don't matter. says we don't despise our suffering because suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And I like this sense of hope more than I like optimism. I don't like the word optimism because it's just like, I'm just going to look at the world, it's great. And particularly when I hear, excuse my, again, categorization, when I hear rich people talk about they're optimistic, well, of course you are, right? You've got a ton of money, you've got a bank of mum and dad, you know, if anything goes wrong, they'll bail you out. Of course you could be optimistic. But no, hope that grapples with suffering is powerful, right? And think about how much deeper that is.
Hope, what is what, sorry?
We don't despise our suffering because suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, character, hope. All great training programs make people suffer.
Yeah.
Think of any special forces or selection programs, right? We're going to make you suffer. Then the suffering isn't just about proving yourself to other people, it's proving yourself to yourself. So when you've suffered and you've overcome, you know you have the ability to overcome. So you can take on the next challenge. That's perseverance, right? It's not that you welcome it. And then we'll send a perseverance, character, and then hope. But the point is that I've often said though, that movement from suffering to perseverance to character to hope is not automatic, right? It's personal commitment, but also it's having people around you. So I have people around me that help me move from suffering to perseverance. They didn't necessarily think that's what they were doing. Some of them may have, but their inputs sustained me through. I popped out to the side. I was like, oh, gee, I know I can deal with that stuff.
Yep.
And then, again, the biblical image, you're trusted in small things, they allow you to take on big things. Small challenges, I talk to my kids about this. You take on small challenges, it just readies you for the bigger ones, right? When I was running for mayor, to be able to become mayor, it'd be great to get, people say I'm a dictator, I'm not, right? But it'd be great not to have to deal with the stress of an election. It is massively stressful, right? You're knocking on doors, you're asking people to like you, it's competition, people saying bad things about you, and stressful. But to be ready for mayor, you have to have gone through an election. Otherwise, you're not equipped for mayor. Now, to run for election, I needed to go through a selection. It's tiring, it's emotionally draining. But going through the selection prepared me for the election. The election prepared me for being the mayor. If I'd have got rid of any of those, I would have been less ready, you know? And so I really am a believer in that. And that's where hope is, right?
The process as well, yeah. So one last question, Marvin. If you could sit down with any one person, dead or alive, right? They don't have to be famous, but I don't know. Who would you sit down with?
No, geez. It's a really difficult one because it's going to sound like a really easy answer. But I say it because I think there's a lot more to the person than people really realise. I'd have to say Jesus, right?
That's what you said earlier,
Yeah, because I think there's a really good book written by a man called Reza Aslan. So Reza Aslan is a Muslim theologian. Well, he's a theologian who is a Muslim. He's a theologian, right? Forget the religion. That's what his job. There's a famous interview in him on Fox News because he wrote a book called The Zealot. And what Reza Aslan says is, I don't believe Jesus was God. I don't believe he was the Son of God. But what a man, right? So he looks at historical records at who this man was. And he existed, he's a historical figure. Whatever you believe about spirituality and theology, that's secondary. There's a historical figure who hung around with prostitutes, right? Hung around with the poor, offended religious and political rulers, and had this profound impact on the world. And if I could sit with that man and ask what his life was actually all about, and ask what he thought of what people had done with the legacy of his life, I think that would be
What's the book
quite
called?
powerful. The Zealot.
Okay.
Yeah, there were lots of people running around at the same time as Jesus saying they were the Messiah. This is one of the things that Reza Aslan points out as a theologian, as a historian. But this one person kind of captured imaginations and sparked a movement. But I think Jesus is, I would just say, I think there's a lot of heresy around Jesus right now in the Christian nationalism, and people have used it for racism and to oppress the poor. I'd like to get at some of that.
Amazing, thank you.
No problem, man.
We will link everything under in the description. I do appreciate it. Do follow me back on Instagram if you want to. Anyway, guys, there you have it. There is another episode of the School Podcast. Something slightly different today, but something really impactful. And I also believe with many guests that we have, it's important to go after it, whatever that is, whether it's a goal, purpose, passion. I just feel like there's, same as what our guest said yesterday, there's no point half-assing anything, and I think you're a prime example, unbelievably inspiring, so thank you. Also, a massive thank you to Nisai Learning, the #1 online platform school in the world. I don't know if it is the world, don't Google that fact, but I'm just going to say it is. They are unbelievable, doing great things in the space. All the descriptions and links and everything, it'll be down below. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.